Hello, welcome to Boardgame Basecoats, and today we are playing through Tiny Towns. So let's check out our randomly chosen buildings. First off, we've got the statue. Now, when you play this, you look at sets of buildings. As long as you have sets of 3, you get gold. Next up, the root cellar, and this is what will feed your cottages. Now, the trick here is it requires gold to feed them, so gold, very important. Next up, the chapel. So for every fed building, you get points, and points are how you win. Next up is the market, alright, and this one provides you 1 gold for other markets in a row or column. Next, the almshouse, and this is basically set collection, gives you points, but only for even numbers, so be careful. And here's the cottage, which is in every game. Alright, so these provide points as long as they're fed. Alright. And finally, the factory type building. Wow, super complex. So this provides you victory points. You can store a resource and other people can get the resources and swap it for gold. Ooh, lots to keep track of there. And we are using this deck of resources in the game. This is primarily focused in the solo game, but I like to use it just in regular games too. So we draw 3 cards here. We've got a brick, we've got a stone, and we've got a wheat to start us off. Let's go ahead and check out our players. Our first player here is Mouse, and as you can see there's a monument card on everyone's tray there. Player number 2 is Crow, number 3 is Snail, and number 4 is going to be Squirrel. Now I got these pictures from the rulebook, so definitely check out the rulebook for some nice pictures. I do like the animals, and I really wish they had them in more of the art. Anyway, first up here is Mouse, and Mouse chooses Wheat to play first. So this is simultaneous play, so the first player, the one with the hammer, chooses one of those cards, and basically everyone takes one and places it where they think it'll help them out. And just like that, we move on. Next up is Crow. So Crow becomes first player, the master builder, and gets to choose. So we have brick, stone, and glass, and Crow chooses brick. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and build up here. Alright, so what determines where you build? So on the building cards, there are certain patterns of these resources, and that's basically it. You would cash in a pattern and build the building, and then get its effects, okay? And then don't forget the face down monument card as well, which usually adds a certain surprise way to win. Alright, and just like that, we moved on to Squirrel to go first. And we have glass, we have stone, and another stone. Squirrel goes ahead and chooses stone and places. Now, the big difference between regular Tiny Towns and Tiny Towns with Fortune, the length of the game is about the same, but what I find is the pacing has changed. Alright, so Mouse here has drawn another glass and chooses the glass. So, what I mean about the pacing is, before in Tiny Towns, you would have your little collection of resources and then cash them in as quickly as possible to open up space. But in Tiny Towns Fortune, if you cash in 2 buildings at the same time, you get gold. And this really has kind of changed the dynamic. It's made it kind of waiting game without increasing the length of gameplay, which is really kind of interesting. So I really do appreciate that about this. So as you can see here, we've gone through, we've come back here to Mouse, and yeah, no one has built anything yet, so that's really the biggest change I've noticed. And plus, the intricacy, the interactions between the cards certainly has ramped up. Alright, so here we are placing wood, the first wood that everyone's gotten here. And so as you look at this spread of resources, you're like, wow, these are getting filled pretty quickly here. Very dangerous. And for new players, yeah, I think this is probably the biggest dangers they place without quite knowing where to go. I mean, they get it, you know, a certain pattern of resources pays for a building, but those interactions between the buildings really are lost on them. So in tiny towns, the go-to win is the farm, whatever that happens to be, and then the cottage, so the cottage win. But with fortunes, that's not such a viable option, and I think you'll see that here as the game progresses. Alright, so here we are, still placing resources. Alright, and as you can see, everyone's definitely got different patterns going on, so we don't quite know what everyone's going for. Alright, so here we are with Crow, and Crow draws wheat. So wheat, stone, and wood. And Crow chooses wheat. Alright, so there we go. And I really do like how thinky the game is. I'm not... Oh, and our first build here. So Squirrel is cashing in for a root cellar. And as you can see, I kind of pushed everything into that corner. I just like to do that just to indicate where I want to build. There's no rule for that. Now, one thing to keep in mind is you can turn and twist the cards. You can do mirror images of the resources to build. Yep, and he built 2 at the same time, so he got gold. All right. And for building the root cellar, you get gold. I think later on, I forget, for somebody, when they build the root cellar, they get gold. So I think that's the biggest thing I always forget. So some of the buildings automatically provide gold just for building them. I usually forget that. And I'm always looking for those interactions rather than just the straight money or straight victory points. Anyway, we've moved on here. Snail has chosen stone. And he's going to cash into and also build a root cellar. Alright, so this really is the key. These farm type buildings are really the key to the regular tiny towns, as I said. But I find that with fortunes, it's not so much. Not so much a key strategy, although it definitely provides a lot of the points. Alright, so Snail here also built 2 buildings. So he gets 1 gold for that, and also gets another gold for just building a root cellar. Everyone else is continuing to place. Now, because of this kind of waiting game, timing how to build buildings really becomes much more a part of the game. And as you can see, some of the people have not built yet, so it really gets kind of dangerous as you play that waiting game and you're running out of spaces. But again, it's another reason why I like the cards. It's almost like you're stuck with this spread right from the start, whereas in the normal game, you get to choose the resource. You really can stick it to other people rather than, okay, the cards have stuck all of us, if you know what I mean. Alright, so anyway, Mouse here is going to go ahead and build his first building, a cottage. Alright. And again, you can place that in any of the 3 squares where the resources were for the cottage. But again, I like to slide where I want to build. Alright, and the first monument card gets built. Alright, so that's this purple card here. You'll flip it over, and there we go. So it is worth victory points. And wow, look at all that text. So some of the buildings definitely have quite a bit of text. This one, when it's built, you place 3 gold anywhere in your city, and your next resources must appear on them. Alright, so he did get a gold for building 2 buildings, and there we go. Alrighty, so definitely some complex cards in the Fortune expansion. Alright, and Crow still not building anything. At this point, he's the only one that hasn't built anything. Ooh, will Crow make it? Alright, so Crow's up. Let's see if he gets the resources he needs to finally build something. Alright, so he gets wheat, wood, and wood. And he chooses wood. Alright, so there it is. Nope, didn't build anything yet. And everyone else looks like they are just placing. And yeah, of course, Mouse here had to place on that coin and gets to keep it. Alright, great. So, really, when I opened the Fortune expansion, I do have that unboxing on my channel, I'd hoped that the coins would add flexibility to play. And they have. Alright, so I think it's definitely a win, a great expansion. You will see this gold come into play here in just another couple of rounds. Anyway, Snail chose brick, and Squirrel here is going to go ahead and cash in for another cottage. And one of the other big concepts of the game is you have to play with these verticals and horizontals. So as you can see, that's very important for where you place. And yep, it looks like Squirrel here is going to go ahead and build his own monument, the Grove University. All right, so this is one that I like. You immediately get to grab a building and build it anywhere. So he chose a church. Normally, I'd build something like a factory. That's usually my go-to when I get that one. Oh, look at Crow. Will he finally build? Yes. All right. I'm sure Crow was getting nervous. All right, so Crow is going to go ahead and build a cottage as well as a statue. All right, so 2 buildings. All right, so again, I'm sorry, not a cottage, but a root cellar to feed cottages. All right, so first 2 buildings, so gets a gold coin. Great. Now the root cellar, when built, gives you a gold coin. Did I remember? Yes, I did. Great. So 2 gold coins so far. Now, the ability of the he's going to build his monument. The ability of the statue is you count for sets of 3 and then get gold that way. But of course, Crow didn't have that. So definitely, this was a challenge. So as you can see here, I'm turning the card, just making sure, yep, I had the right pattern. Again, you can have it mirrored, flipped, turned, it doesn't matter, but it has to be that exact pattern. You couldn't, for example, switch where those yellows and blues are and have a completely different pattern. The patterns are important. All right, so there we go. That's opened up his board. Great. And he's got some gold too. Fantastic. Okay, moving on. We're going to go ahead and pass it on to player 4, and that would be Squirrel. All right, so Squirrel's up, and he's going to go ahead and draw glass, and that's what he chooses. All right, so glass for everybody. Okay, so Mouse here plays his glass, and he has to play it on that coin because of the card, but he's going to use money and switch it to another resource. All right, so here's what I was talking about with the flexibility of these coins. So at the moment that you get a resource, you can use gold to swap it out, all right? And that's important at the moment. All right, so here we go. Snail's going to build the obelisk of the crescent, and this is my favorite building in the entirety of the game. Again, I chose these at random. I was really happy to see this one. When I see it, I always get it. Because what happens is when you build something, you can then place it anywhere you want, which is an amazingly powerful ability. All right. So, yeah, I'm just admiring the card. Love it. With this card, you can definitely do a lot of strategies. You just, as long as you have a certain area open, you can build to your heart's content. Anyway, 2 buildings, so it gets gold for that. And we'll go ahead and pass the Master Builder token. All right, so we are back to Mouse, and Mouse draws stone. So wheat, wood, and stone. Mouse chooses wheat. Okay, so there we go. And it looks like we have plenty here. Yep, and Mouse will build a cottage. Okay, there it is. And again, it's very important those cottages are fed. In the normal game, it's very easy to do a cottage win, where you just build a bunch of cottages and then it's easily fed by the farm-type buildings. But one of the keys to the Fortune expansion is these farm-type buildings really have a wrinkle. And in this one, you need gold to pay for that feeding. Anyway, we moved on. Crow has chosen stone, and everyone will simply place. And usually the building comes in these waves like this, all right? As you run out of spaces here, and you really got to think forward, and you can kind of trap people with the choices that you make. All right, so it's definitely one of the extra little strategies of the game. All right, so Snail draws up a brick, so glass, wood, and brick, And Snail chooses brick. Alright, so there we go. So brick there. Squirrel plays his brick, and it looks like he can build, and he does. And he builds a cottage, alright. And there it is in a nice column, which will definitely make it much easier to feed. And there we go, great. And he also builds a statue, fantastic. So this means that he has 2 buildings built at the same time. And so he'll get a gold for that. Alright. And yep, it looks like he'll be able to use the power as well. Yep, so he had a set of 3, so he gets a gold for that. But he did build 2 buildings, so he does get a gold, but oops, I forgot to get that gold. So right here I have the little oops on the screen, and that's because the recording went a little wonky, so I didn't keep track of things. You're going to see a bunch of jump cuts here. But at least we got the key steps. Alright, so things will be appearing and disappearing here. But at least we got some footage here. At this time, no one builds anything, so that's fine. But yeah, this is just one of those flubs. And while I'm talking about flubs, I really hope that you're enjoying my playthroughs. But I hope you don't look at them as how-to plays, because you know, as I play games, sometimes I make mistakes, and it's easy to get into that trap of, oh, yeah, I know this game, yeah, and then find out, oh, I've been playing this game wrong. I do hope to have proper information, and with that, we are back to it. And Squirrel here has chosen brick, and so bricks for everybody. Alright, or I'm sorry, Mouse chose brick, and Squirrel is going to change that brick into stone, okay, with that gold. Yeah, so you can really see the importance of this gold. It's almost like in the first couple rounds you're building up a bunch of resources, then you cash in for gold, and then you enter this sort of middle game where, like Crow, you could be kind of trapped where you have no spaces. But as the game progresses, you're losing more and more spaces, so it becomes much harder to get that gold. So there's no guarantee that you'll be able to get more gold, because the only way is to build 2 buildings at once. So I really do like the game, how it works that way. You really got to think ahead to how things are built and keep your spaces open. Alright, we are moving on here to player 3. That is Snail. And Snail has wheat, wood, and wood. Alright, so he chooses wheat. Alright, and he will place. Next up, Squirrel, and he will place. And onto Mouse. And Mouse is going to go ahead and cash in and get his own root cellar. Alright, so, and again, this allows him to feed the cottages in a row or column, but must pay for every row and column. Alright, so definitely a trick. And he's going to go ahead and build a cottage. And again, you can build the actual building in any of the spaces the resources were in. I like to slide them where they're going to be. Again, that's just me. Keeps it simple. Alright, so he did build 2 buildings, so he does get gold. Moving on to Crow. And Crow is going to go ahead and cash in for a cottage. Great. And it looks like he'll be able to, and now he places, to build another cottage. Now, note that Crow did not build these at the same time. So that's a key part of the gaining gold rule. So although he built 2 buildings on his turn, he did not build them simultaneously. So have to keep that in mind. I was of 2 minds of it about it. On one hand, I was annoyed, but on the other hand, okay, you know, it's kind of important to keep that in mind, along with everything else. So you can imagine that I was definitely burning my brain, trying to keep everyone's strategies straight, because everyone's strategies are slightly different. I do make a mistake with one of the players as I mix the strategies. Let's see what we drew. Stone. Okay, so stone, wood, and Mouse chooses stone. Alright, so stone hits the table for everybody, and they're trying to think ahead and be careful where they place them, because you can kind of get into this trap of getting resources that you really don't need or want as you stick to your one strategy of whatever you're building. I do find, though, that with the Fortune expansion that I build more buildings than just one or two. Alright, so we did draw wheat, so we have wheat, stone, and stone, and Crow chose wheat, and everyone's placing. But as you can see here, Snail is swapping that wheat for a stone, and all thanks to money. And he is cashing in for an almshouse. Alright, so Snail here is going for the almshouse win. That is to say, he is building a whole bunch of these to get a set. So right now he's at an odd number of 3, which would be negative points at the end of the game. So he definitely wants to build an even number of these. Alright, so he's got 3 so far. Good luck to him. Alright, now he did build at least 2 buildings, or he built 2 buildings at the same time, so he gets gold for it. With the obelisk, my favorite, he can place it anywhere. And there we go. That said, I usually am very careful about where I build anyway, but still, it's nice to have the insurance. Anyway, Squirrel gets a wheat, but he pays a gold to swap it for a wood. Alright, and he's going to cash in those resources there to get a chapel. So the fed houses will equal more points, and as you can see, he now has 2 chapels, which is basically doubling the number of points that he can potentially get. He's also sliding that wood over to build a statue. There it is. Great. So he'll count sets with that, and he did build 2 buildings. So let's see how we go. So he built 2 buildings at the same time, so he gets his gold. And now the statue's ability is to count sets of 3. He has 3 cottages, so he gets another gold. So nice round for him. Mouse plays his wheat. He will pay a gold to swap it for a glass, and he could have cashed it in for a chapel, but perhaps he's waiting to cash into it at the same time. Alright, so definitely one of those games with the Fortune expansion that makes you wait. Oh, and here it is. Okay, so solid wood, so 3 wood there, and of course Snail has no option but to choose wood, and he's going to pay gold though to change it to a glass. Alright. Squirrel also gets the wood, and he has to pay to swap it for a brick. So this is one of the cool things I found in the Fortune expansion. So you kind of can force everyone to spend their gold. So it's I like the new strategies that have appeared in new forms with the Fortune expansion. So just a cool little thing. Anyway, Crow here swaps out for a cottage and swaps out for a statue here. Alright, great. So that'll mean that he built 2 buildings at the same time, which is great. So that should net him some gold, and there we go. So 2 buildings, great. So gold in the late game too. Anyway, so statue, he counts sets of 3. He does have 3 houses, or 3 cottages rather. So as the game goes, getting more gold is definitely a problem, and you just don't want to spend it willy-nilly. Well, good, we're getting other resources. So that said, Squirrel sticks with the wood. Alright, so I'm sure everyone is not happy about that. Mouse spends his last gold to swap that wood into glass. Alright. Crow gets the wood, and he also changes that wood, and he will change it also to glass. Alrighty, great. And Snail gets the wood and keeps it. Alright, so keeps it in the corner. Hopefully it'll help him out later. We are back to our first player. That's Mouse, and Mouse draws glass. So wood, glass, and stone. And Mouse chooses glass. Alright, and it looks like, yep. So Mouse is able to cash all of those resources in for a chapel. And see, plays like this were much harder to do in Tiny Towns. But with the addition of the gold, yeah, it's much more possible to get big swinging type plays like this. So this is awesome. So 3 churches, wow. So triples the amount of points you can get as long as those houses are fed. All right. So everyone else places their glass, and hopefully it didn't trap them. All right. Moving on, we have Crow, and Crow draws wheat. So wood, wheat, and brick. So plenty of choices here. He chooses brick, and he places there. Nothing to cash in, and it looks like everyone is going to go ahead and place their brick, hopefully in places that'll help them out. Moving on, we're going to pass the hammer to make a new master builder, and that would be player 3, and that is Snail. Snail draws a stone, so wood, wheat, and stone. Again, plenty of choices, and he chooses wheat. Oh, yep, and there we go. So, caches 1, 2, and 3, 1, 2, and 3 for 2 cottages. Great. So, again, cottages tend to be the main way to get points, but with the advent of the Fortune expansion, some of the farms are definitely dangerous, and we got a dangerous one here. It's not the only or necessarily the best strategy anymore. I really do find that with the Fortune expansion that I am doing a variety of builds. I'm actually building more buildings, so it's not going to be just 2 buildings anymore, or 3 with the monument. I'll get 4 buildings, 5 buildings even. So it is kind of cool. Moving on, we're going on to Squirrel. Alright, so Squirrel's going to go ahead and draw, and we have wood, brick, and stone, and he chooses wood. Alright, but he chooses wood, but then he pays to change it to glass. Oh, Squirrel choosing wood, and I'm sure it was a resource no one wanted. Anyway, it was a resource he definitely wanted here. Oops, there. Not wood. He's thinking wood too much there. Nope. He swapped those around. There we go. So he is building 2 cottages. So I think with one move here, he got what he wanted, and kind of messed up everyone else. But man, that's a lot of cottages. So he may have shot himself in the foot unless he can get some gold. Now, he did build 2 cottages and should have got gold there, and I think I forgot to give it to him. So I think I was just excited by the fact that I messed up other people, because as you can see, everyone's placing the wood and have to spend their gold here. And Snail swapped out that wood and got a statue out of it. And luckily for him, he's actually got 2 different sets of buildings. So he's not going to get 1 gold, but 2. Great. All right, so pass it on. And we are now back to player 1. That would be Mouse. And Mouse will draw. And he gets glass. So glass, brick, and stone. All right, so and we're going to go ahead and place our glass, and it looks like no one is going to spend any coin to swap it out. Alright, great. So we're going to go ahead and pass on to player number 2, and that would be Crow. Alright, so Crow draws and gets another brick. So brick, brick, and stone. And there we go. So he chooses brick, and he placed there. It doesn't cash in for anything. Snail will also place that brick, but he's going to pay a gold to swap it out for stone. And Squirrel places, and Mouse places his brick as well. Alright, and as you can see, those boards are getting full. You don't get any minus points for any unspent resources. You only get minus points for empty spaces. Alright, Snail has drawn. He drew a glass, but he chose stone, and everyone is placing their stones here, but Mouse is going to place a stone and then cash in. So he's going to build a cottage, and looks like he has a nice row. Okay, a perfect row of cottages. Great. That'll make it easy to pay for those. And he builds a statue. Fantastic. So 2 buildings in 1 turn, and wow, it's really late in the game. So Mouse did a great job here. So 2 buildings, gets gold, and the power of the statue. So he's going to count sets of 3. He has 2 sets of 3, so 2 more pieces of gold. Fantastic. And again, extra gold at the end of the game will go and be victory points. Now, look here. So Crow completely filled his town there with resources. So normally I might end a game there, especially if it's my first game with someone that they've never played. It's usually a good stopping point, even though here he could cash it in for things. I usually tell them initially, all right, look, as soon as somebody has placed a resource down and completely filled their town, we're going to stop there. We'll play out the round and then everyone just cashes in however it goes. And that's usually a good stopping point. And then we'll play again, because at that time everyone understands how we place the resources and cash them in. They might have a better idea of the interactions. Usually your first game of Tiny Towns, yeah, you've painted yourself in a corner or cashed things in wrong. So we usually play a quick game and then play another game, and then they do much better in that second game and feel much better about themselves. Now you can see here, Squirrel might be in some trouble, and we'll talk about that as we get the scoring. But here we are with Snail, who is building another almshouse, and that's the fourth one that he needed. So wow, that's a huge amount of points, 15 points there. So that's massive. All right, and then he places his wheat, but he's going to pay gold to swap it out for stone. All right, oops there. Let's leave the stone behind. All right, great. And then he's going to swap those two out and get a statue. Now, again, he did build two buildings in one turn, but they weren't simultaneous, so no gold for that. But by placing the statue, he has two sets of at least 3, so he will get gold for those sets. Now, because of the obelisk, he can place it. Makes no difference, but hey, I have it. I'm going to slide that one over. Why not? All right. And we're going to pass the hammer on to Mouse. All right. And Mouse is going to go ahead and draw a card. And he draws stone. All right. So glass, brick, and stone. He chooses glass. Yeah, as a default, choosing glass because it's the corner piece of the cottages is generally a good idea, and as you can see, everyone's placing them in the corners. But yeah, so definitely keep that in mind, that the cottage is usually a way of, it's kind of a default scoring. Anyway, Crow goes here, he drew a stone, and he chooses a stone. Alright, so he's going to place his stone, Snail places stone, Squirrel places stone, but pays to change it out for a wheat. Now, this late in the game, that might be bad. So late in the game, you want to hang on to your gold, especially with some of the trickier farms. And this root cellar requires gold to pay for it to feed. So definitely might be some bad play going on here. All right, so anyway, we are back to Snail, and Snail has stone, brick, and draws wheat. And he chooses stone. Alright, so he's going to place a stone here. Now he could get an almshouse, but that would be bad. No. So he actually pays to swap the stone for a wood. And so he can cash it in for a statue and then get a net gain of gold. Alright, because again, he'll count sets, and so he spent 1 gold basically to get 2. So not bad. Great. Now we're going to move on here to Snail, who's in a bad way here. Yeah, so he's spending his gold here. He should not be spending his gold here. Now he swapped it here for a brick to build another cottage. Now, in normal tiny towns, this might be a great idea because you're playing with rows and columns, usually off of the farm. But this farm requires gold to work, so might not be great. Right here too, Mouse is following suit and building a cottage. This might also be a bad thing to do, but yeah, we'll let him go at it. All right, moving on. Yeah, where's he going to place that resource? Yeah, he'll place it there. Raven places a resource, and again it's all full, but he's going to go ahead and cash in there. Oops, there. Did he want to place there? No. He's going to work on his timing here. So what he's going to do is first he's going to cash this one in to build a statue. Alright. And when we pull that out, at that time we count our set, so that gives us a gold. Okay. And now we'll place the stone there to play the coin to swap it out and change it to a glass. So I like this kind of, you get to choose how to play out your turn. So you get some really good combos in, and as you can see, he now has a good row. And as he waved my finger there, yeah, he built two things, but no, he didn't get a gold for that. So this is a good spot. We're going to go ahead and end it here. I think we kind of get it. At several points, people filled out their cities here. So yeah, it's a good one. So let's go ahead and check out everyone's boards and the scores. So as you can see here, a lot of points, especially for cottages, but got a nice amount of points for the church. So 33 points there for Mouse. Let's go ahead and check out Crow. Crow got his points from the cottages, not so many from the church, and yeah, ended up with 20. Great. Nothing too crazy there from Crow. Notice though that no one, I think, bought a factory. Yeah, factories are probably the underdogs of the whole game. Let's go ahead and check out Snail. Now Snail went with the almshouse and ended up with 31 points. So 18, 15 there. Just 2 minus points for empty squares. Great. And finally, let's check out Squirrel. Wow, so many houses, but not enough gold. And as you can see, I left the gold on the trays, but that gold basically paid for however many rows or columns to activate the root cellar. Yeah, so 13 points only. So our winner is Mouse. Okay, so Mouse won it, just barely. And that'll wrap us here. All right, so all in all, I do like the puzzly aspects of the game. I like how the cubes came together to build houses, and those houses have powers and abilities, and you really do have to keep track of those interactions. With the Fortune expansion, it added money. It did add a lot of complexity and more interaction with the cards, but in general, it really added flexibility. It does change and makes a kind of waiting game, but didn't add a lot of time. So in general, I really think it's a winner. I do recommend the game to you, and I'm really happy that you stopped by. Thanks a lot. Bye.